Well, if you watch the channel regular, you'll know that it's been a little over 2 years since I got this Z-Spray. This is a 2023 model, which was the year that Z-Turf Equipment remodeled the Z-Spray and made some changes. I was actually riding on an older model, I think a 2020 model the other day that somebody had gotten in, and I could see some of the differences because I just honestly wasn't very familiar with the older model. But this is the 2023, which was that year they remodeled it. I want to talk to you as somebody who's had this for a little over 2 years now, some of the pros and cons. And I hope this is helpful for you if you're in the market for a rhino spreader spray, or specifically a Z-Spray. Talk to you about things I like about it, things I think could be maybe improved, and how I ultimately end up using it in my business. So let's get started. So this was an exciting day when I got this. Z-Turf Equipment provided me with this machine a couple of years ago, which was really a game changer for my business, particularly in the way that I'm using this now in weed control and fertilization. So let's talk about it. Again, I'm a much better operator than I was 2 years ago when I was just learning, what does all the buttons do and how to control it. Now, of course, I had ridden zero-turn mowers and I understood how driving a hydraulic machine would work, but trying to make sure that I was doing a good job with the applications was something that was new for me riding on a big machine like this. All right, so let me just give you the little walk around here. You see, this is the Z-Spray Mid, as you can see here on the side of the machine. So the mid version has 20-gallon tanks on both sides of it. And so ultimately standard comes with 40 gallons there. I've also got an extra 7-gallon tank there. And then this 7-gallon tank, I believe we call this an auxiliary tank because it basically can pull and spray the same things that in the larger tanks. And this is an ISO tank. So you can put something separate in here because it has its own pump and its own separate hose. So the idea behind this being that you could put something in there for spot treating the weeds. All right, so let's talk about the things that I like about this and maybe some things that could be tweaked. First thing I want to mention is an extremely comfortable ride. As I'm riding on this, it's got good suspension on the platform here. The other thing is you're kind of leaning forward as you ride. I don't know if they call this a belly pad or say below my belly, but it definitely adds a lot of comfort to the ride. So I think the combination of this nice seat or pad or whatever you want to call it, as well as the suspension in the platform, makes it very good to drive. Now it's smooth, operates smooth. Of course, if there's bumps in the yard, you're going to feel that a little bit. But overall, I'm very pleased with the way it rides. One of my favorite things about it, just to be honest with you, is when you flip this seat over, and this was not something that was new on the new model, it was on the old model as well. But as I flip that seat over, it's got this calibration chart on it, which is extremely helpful. Let me just tell you exactly what I've done with this. So it comes standard with the lavender tips, and I've got mine set at 40 PSI, which shows that you're spraying 0.34 gallons per 1,000 square feet. So just trust me if you can't see the writing on here. Well, let's just say I get out on a big open property, which I do have one. What I'll do with those same lavender tips, I'll crank it up to 60 PSI. And at 60 PSI, I can go 6 miles an hour. And I'm right there at 0.35 gallons per 1,000 square feet instead of 0.34. So just by cranking it up to 60, I can now go 6 miles an hour instead of 5 miles per hour, which is kind of my standard when I'm on a yard. Having this chart on the back of the seat, I think is very smart. It tells you all the stuff with the different nozzles. And one thing I'm trying to do this next year is want to go over and get me some high volume tips that I can put on there for spraying insecticides and things like that, where more water volume is going to be very helpful. So if I can, go 5 miles per hour with a different set of tips, then I can be spraying 2 gallons per 1,000, or at least over a gallon per 1,000, just by changing out the tips, which will be great. Now, it does have a generous sized fuel tank on there, but I will say it is a powerful engine. So the fuel economy is not great compared to some smaller machines I have, but I think that's okay because I need the power, especially when I'm on a situation where there's a hill or I just need to go faster for whatever reason. I will take the power over It's, you know, a little bit better fuel economy. And I will say I appreciate that they made the gas tank easy to access when you need to refill. The other thing that I just absolutely love about this in particular, and this is doesn't come standard, but you can get it as an accessory, is this turf marking kit. So with those of us with these warm season lawns like I most deal with Bermuda grass, it's not near as easy to tell where you've been as it is in a cool season lawn. And I can demonstrate in a little bit, but you'll see as I'm spraying, it's going to be dropping foam bubbles as I'm spraying. And the idea is as you make a pass, you want to have about 10 inches of space in between your passes there where the foam bubbles are. So by doing that, I can get excellent coverage, not overlap too much, not leave a gap between my passes. And that would be very challenging in a warm season lawn without that foam marking kit. It works great. And the foam marking kit, it actually has these different tips over here that are going to be dropping out the big foam bubbles. One other thing that I've been told is a big improvement over older models. Again, I haven't had the older model, but I can actually raise up the hopper, which makes your maintenance far easier. So you can see I can lower that hopper all the way down like that. And now if I need to change the oil or do some sort of maintenance or just see what's going on or even just clean out in this area, it's far easier to access than without being able to do that. I've been very pleased with the Vanguard engine on this one. Again, this one's 21 horsepower, which on a lawnmower is not that powerful, but for this, it seems to be plenty of power. Had zero problems. I am using the recommended Vanguard oil and everything they tell me to do as far as the maintenance of trying to take care of it. But had no problems, again, after 2 years with this Vanguard engine. The other thing that I really like about this is this extra hose here, and I began using this more and more. So I've used this in a couple of different ways. One, as I get on a property, I may ride the perimeter, and while I'm standing on the machine, I'm sitting here driving with one hand, and then I've got this in my other hand spraying around the perimeter up close to the shrubs and things before I start making my passes with the actual machine. So it's very handy for that. The second thing I'll do sometimes, if there's a narrow gate and I can't get the machine through there, but maybe a little tiny backyard, is I'll just simply park the machine and then I'll actually pull out the hose there, and it gives me quite a bit of distance to maybe reach a difficult area that I couldn't get the machine in there. But because of the hose there, I'm able to access that area. Maybe something's a little different if you're used to the older model is these nozzles, flipping them up turns them on, pushing them down turns them on. I think it was the opposite on the older models. And one more thing I wanted to mention is that I really love about this particular one compared to the older ones is this foot pedal is much improved. The other foot pedal on the older models was much smaller and tucked underneath there was a little bit harder to access. This is a nice large foot pedal, and actually I pretty much operate my machine off of the foot pedal. I know some people that operate it, they'll turn the sprayer on and off with the nozzles. I just keep the sprayer set to where it operates off of the foot pedal. So I have the nozzles on, including the foam marking kit. All of it's turned on, and I set these different tabs to where it operates off of the foot pedal. So with this one in that position, that one in that position, then it's going to have both the foot pedal and my sprayer operating as I push the foot pedal. And that's how I typically operate it. Now, if I need to turn one nozzle off, I can on a narrower space or two nozzles. But I pretty much operate foot pedal using that a lot. And again, I think that was a big improvement over the older model. And one of the things I just honestly haven't used much at all is the ISO tank. I love the concept of it, and I don't think it's a bad idea. I just personally don't use it much. So if I'm out there riding, let's say I'm spraying a pre-emergent certain time of year, and the idea being I'm spraying and I see some weed that I know what's in the tank's not going to control, then I have this separate product that I might could use. And instead of having to walk back to the truck and get a backpack sprayer, handheld sprayer, I can just spot treat it with the ISO tank. It sounds great. I think it's a great idea. Personally, I just don't hardly ever do it. Thankfully, I hope to not have many weeds to spot treat because I hope the yards are looking clean. But again, I love the concept, not a feature I'm using a whole lot at this time. I do love that you've got these separate isolated tanks. I could have 3 different products in there if I wanted to. I could put something, I could actually have 4, but I could have one in the right tank, one in the left tank, one in this auxiliary tank, and have them all control. I can have it pull from all of them at the same time or just pull from one. If I had, let's just say, Bermuda and Zoysia lawns and then Centipede and Seance lawns, I could have a Bermuda Zoysia mix over here. And if I come up on a Centipede Seance mix, I can flip the valves and have it start pulling from that side with a different mix in it completely. If I had any negatives to say about it in comparison with other machines, other methods, I do think when the turf gets a little bit soft, so you're talking about early in the year here in Alabama where I live, I start spraying yards in January. The turf can be quite soft, and so you got to be a little bit easy getting on the turf with a big machine like this. Sometimes I'll refer to a handheld sprayer or a smaller machine in those situations. Another thing is I do typically pull a trailer when I'm with this. And if I happen to have a yard that's on a street without a cul-de-sac at the end of the street, it can be a little tricky to have to get in there and back the trailer in somebody's driveway or back it out of the street or however. So, you know, just understanding having to pull a trailer is not ideal. I know a friend of mine, he has one, and he has actually the ramp rack on the back of his truck, and he rides it in the back of the ramp rack. Some of these Isuzu cab-over situations have it where you can drive a machine like that and be able to carry it without a trailer. But for those of us like me, I do have to have a trailer. Personally speaking, I've got a lot of small yards. I typically use this on the medium to larger size yards. On the really small yards, I'm typically using a smaller machine, or I'll just spray it with a hand, my spray tank on the back of my truck. The other thing, and this is personally just because of what I've got used to, is I typically will use a smaller machine to spread granulars, again, because I got a lot of small yards, and I'm just not as comfortable spreading the granulars on this machine because it's just not what I started with. That being said, I had a friend that had a Zpray, and he would talk about spreading lime on his Zpray in the wintertime, which is something we do a lot of times. And he said he'd have to have that trailer with so much lime on it because he was spreading the lime so fast on the Zpray, and the production was excellent on that. Again, I mostly use mine for spraying. I've done very little spreading with it. Another improvement I think they've made is the ability to handle hills. So it will handle a fairly decent hill. It won't handle every hill I come in contact with. Again, there might be some situations where I have to park the machine and put the emergency brake on or parking brake on, and I have to use the hose to spray a hillside if I'm unable to get to it, or I have to use a tank sprayer if I need to do that. But they have made improvements, but in my situation, I can't use it on every single yard because there are some yards that are too steep of a hill that I just simply can't use the Zpray on those properties. So in summary, it's been a great machine. I don't use it on every property. I don't use it on every single application. I'm mostly doing blanket applications with it. It definitely saves my legs a lot of walking. It definitely ups my production time, especially on bigger properties. It definitely just makes it more enjoyable as I'm out there, which is great. I remember when I first got it and I was just a little bit uncomfortable learning how to drive it and making sure I wasn't spraying at the wrong time. You know, it's not just driving a machine, it's driving the machine while you're making a lawn application. I can drive machines, but I need to make sure I'm doing a great job on the lawn application at the same time that I'm driving the machine. And my friend, he encouraged me, he said, you just need to get some seat time on that thing. And he was right. The more the time I've spent on it, now it does sort of feel like second nature when I'm on there. You don't have to put a lot of thought into it, and I rarely make a mistake with the machine anymore. And learning how to use the features that are on there, learning how to use that spray wand to go around the edges, which is a good idea, and learning that some yards I need to make 2 perimeter passes before I go back and start going back and forth, because it may give me a little bit extra room to make my turn. So this, once I got comfortable with my particular strategy, not everybody uses the foot button as much as I do, but I've learned what works for me, and ultimately it's been a machine that has been a pleasure to use. I've had all this video is helpful for you. Give me an honest review here of the Zpray. Let me know what you think about it. If you have one, the older model, the newer model. If you got the older model, I'd love to hear what features are on the newer model that you think, wow, that would be great if I had that model. Or if you're into some other sprayer, you can let us know that as well. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.